welcome back to John Bachman Now. A new year means new laws and regulations will take effect. Newly appointed political positions will now be in charge, such as the incoming New York City Comptroller Brad Lander, who, get this, will have an NYPD security detail with him, even though he advocates for defunding the police. After demonstrations erupted across America over the murder of George Floyd, Lander penned an op-ed letter to his constituents in June of 2020. It was titled this: "My commitment to defund the NYPD." The memo called for slashing the department's budget by $1 billion. Well, joining now to discuss is today's panel, founder and president of the American King Foundation and former Georgia congressional candidate Angela King Stanton. Also with us is commentary editor at the Washington Times, Kelly Sadler. Kelly was also a special assistant to President Trump under his administration. And we have legal analyst and distinguished university professor at Touro College, Thane Rosenbaum. Welcome back to all of you. Angela, I'm going to start with you. I mean, it seems like this is always the case. The people who argue to defund the police literally have them surrounding them or hire private security to make sure that they're safe.
You know, this defund the police movement is the most absurd thing that I have ever heard. We actually need to make sure that the police are funded so they can be properly trained. Just a couple of months ago, a cousin, a family member of mine, was murdered on the train in Los Angeles at Hollywood and Vine, and the police officers told us it's because we don't have adequate staff. We've been defunded. What about the people that need their lives saved by the police? The police have saved more lives than they can ever imagine. This isn't a white or black thing. This is just about good or bad, and make sure that the citizens who are paying taxes are being protected. I don't support defund the police. It's not about racism. It's just about making sure that they're properly funded to protect the people.
Lander, who's an outgoing Brooklyn Democratic councilman, he said in June that there was too much support going into the police. He said that there was too much money going into their pot. You know, Thane, it's interesting because, to Angela's point, if there's no funding, people don't want to work in these police departments. They don't want to be there. And also, we've seen how the police departments have been demonized. And so they're having a problem with people retiring early or with recruitment as well.
And Lindsay, we have to ask ourselves, who benefits from defunding the police? Certainly criminals. Certainly politicians like Lander, who live in progressive cities like New York City or San Francisco. By the way, Lander used to be my city council person, Lindsay. I didn't vote for him then either. Celebrities who were always signaling their virtue or demonstrating their moral superiority while they live behind gated mansions. And of course, people like Lander now, who already have private security details assigned to them, or as a part of their job, whether they're paying for it or not, that's what they're entitled to. We've seen this rank hypocrisy before, Lindsay. Remember in California, we had a governor who was having dinner at a restaurant when no one else was eating in a restaurant. We had a congressperson, Speaker of the House, actually, who was having her hair done when no one was having their hair done. So this defunding the police always seems to be pushed by the very people that are insulated from criminals.
That's right.
You know, and Kelly, we saw Thane, this guy, he praised Minneapolis when they were going to shift from having a police department to a Department of Public Safety. These people, they think that they have a good solve, but it's proving that it's not a good solve, because we know that crime is at an all-time high right now. It's surging around the country, and it's showing if there's no consequences for actions, people aren't naturally just going to go be good.
Yeah, well, I understand why he wants the protection in New York City, right? Their murder rate has more than doubled in 2 years. Shootings have more than doubled. It is, for all sakes, like spiking crime. So people are scared. Residents are scared. They're moving down to Florida because New York has become so unsafe. But it's become so unsafe because of these, you know, the defund the police movement and the fact and the impact that has had on the cops retiring early, cops not wanting to go in on the job because they're not going to be properly funded. So it is rank hypocrisy, but I am not surprised, because these liberals, it's always do what I say, not as I do.
You know, Angela Landers, as I mentioned earlier, funding should be directed towards social services, Do you think that we're seeing a shift now because it's not working amongst that liberal mindset? Or do people still think that that's the right approach, that you should take money away from police, and if you did give it to more social services, that it would, help the root cause in the end?
I want to go back to what Thane said, which was so important. He said, who benefits from the police being defunded? He said it's the criminals, because I'll tell you what, I've lived in those disenfranchised communities, and crime is on the rise, and we are the ones, the same ones that are standing on the front line saying defund the police. We're the ones that are most impacted by crime. We have cities like Chicago and New York chasing down children, putting them out of restaurants because they don't have vaccination cards, and you can't even capture the criminals or the gangbangers that are having violent shootings every day in your city, taking away innocent lives. We need to refocus. We need to understand that the citizens are at risk. And we need to also understand that many of those law enforcement officers are friends and family members, people that we love. It isn't the entire police department. Let's get back to community policing. Let's make sure that our police departments are properly funded so that we can protect our children, our elderly, and our most vulnerable in this society.
Thane, as I think about a legal aspect here, you think of, as Angela's talking about, these families who have lost loved ones, who have lost people dear to them, because you have city councils or mayors defunding police departments. Is there legal action that could be taken upon any of these people for their losses?
It's an excellent point. Let me add to what Angela wisely said. Remember, our system of government, our Constitution is based on the social contract, which is a contract between the government and its people. And one of the things that contract says is you're going to give up your right to private vengeance in return for paying taxes, and we'll protect you. It's a contractual obligation that the government has to its people. And the question is, are governments, local governments with progressive political leaders, who think that social workers should be the one that police criminals, are they breaching the contract, the social contract that the government has with its people to say, we do not want private acts of vengeance. We don't want you buying a gun and going out shooting people. We will handle it for you. And what we've seen over the last year and a half with rising crime is we're not handling it for you. And so it's raising a question that if people then are either buying guns or bringing lawsuits to say, give me back my tax dollars, because some of that tax dollars was intended to protect me.
Okay. Kelly, I'm going to give you the last word here. I'm out of time, so 20 seconds here. But how big of an issue should this be in 2022 for candidates?
Oh, I think this should be the number one issue, one of the number one issues that Republicans run on. We've seen the failures in these progressive cities. People are not feeling safe. And, Republicans are the party of law and order and have been against this on the record since the very beginning. And now you're seeing very liberal cities like Minneapolis realize the mistakes that they've made and start refunding the police department. It'll be interesting to see what New York City does under their new governor, but he largely ran as a Democrat, being tough on crime, and hopefully he can restore the safety of that city.
All right. Angela, Kelly, Thane, thanks for your insight and conversation. Have a happy New Year.
You
Thank
too,
you,
Lindsay.
Lindsay.